Good afternoon. Patrick here, 8 Questions with. Welcome to the show. Oh boy. So obviously, we weren't here last week. Uh, we took that week off because it was the 4th of July week and just didn't think anybody would be, everybody's going to be celebrating the 4th or on vacation with the families. And just didn't want to go against that. So I decided to not do anything last week and save it for this week. So we'll start off for July with a bang with three events this week. Today we will be talking with Matthew Trimble and Marc Bauer. They're Iowa-based filmmakers. Um, Matt is a film director. Marc is a producer and a screenwriter, and they have made a terrific movie. But stop me if you've heard that before, because I love Iowa films. They got some seriously wicked talent in Iowa right now. And no doubt, Remote is definitely one of my favorite films of the year. My review comes out tomorrow, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I I thought it was really good. Interesting, interesting movie. Definitely one that you'll be coming back to look at again because there's all sorts of twists and turns in it. So that will be dropping here in about 15 minutes when they get here. Tomorrow, we get to we get how to reschedule our good friend Marcus. From I shot him 6 times. He's a fellow horror tuber. Um, well, you didn't know I was a horror tuber, right? Oh, you just saw that. You saw the Nanny Diaries, and you don't think I'm a horror tuber. Don't worry, we got something up. We got something for you. Uh, Mark is with us tomorrow. He'll be with us, and we're going to be talking all things horror tomorrow. That's for sure. As you can tell by his channel name, he is a tremendous lover of all things Halloween. Now, okay, so I know I don't know how to say this. We're gonna have to convert him over to some really cool indie movies, for sure. I can't wait to get his opinion about some of the latest films from the latest Halloween movies. It's always cool to talk to a diehard, someone a fan who really knows the franchise and the lore really steep like Marcus does. He'll have some interesting takes on the series and where it should go now. Um, that and we'll talk about some other films as well. Some of the films that are coming out during the summer. He's a pretty avid film goer, so he goes to see a lot of the recent releases. And we'll talk about physical media. Where it's going, where does he think it's going to go, and we'll talk about his YouTube channel, all sorts of good stuff. And that'll be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Um, and then on the 12th, on Saturday the 12th, we will be back here on the 12th at 8 o'clock with filmmaker Joe Leone. We had to reschedule this too. We're gonna do a watch party for the film Reap uh, that Joe wrote and directed. It's the first film that they introduced me to Joe Leone, and it's a banger of a movie. I'm glad we're getting it. Um, Actually had to reschedule both our watch parties because of circumstances. So this Saturday we got Joe Leone with Freep, and then next Saturday the 19th we get an actress who's been on the show before, Gabrielle Westwood. She'll be here, and her and I are big Haley Bennett fans. So we're doing a watch party for She Is Love. Now, that might not be the biggest Haley Bennett film that you might think of. There are bigger ones out there for sure. A Girl on a Train, Magnificent Seven. I thought about doing Swallow, but I decided to do this small film that she did during the pandemic because I loved it. I think she looks gorgeous, and it's an interesting film and how they made it. And so I thought, well, let's go to my fellow Haley Bennett fan, and so she said, yeah. Of course, she is busy as hell right now. She is working on assignment, and so we wish her the very best. That show will happen on the 19th, rain or shine. Um, what else is coming up here on the channel? I sort of got ahead of myself. On the 17th, we're going to be welcoming back Dylan Von Harvey back to the show. It's been a while since we've talked to Dylan. She's got a new film out. She's got a couple of new films out since we last talked to her. And we'll catch up with her. One of the sweetest people in the indie film. She does a lot of movies with Todd Sheets. It's so weird how that works. You hear this all the time from fans, like people who make horror movies are the nicest people that to meet at conventions and whatnot, and that really is true here with Dylan. She is just one of the coolest people that I've met. Hey, let's see. Anthony is here. Yes, he's. Let's see. He is doing 2014 this week. I'm doing okay. We're doing okay. We're glad to be here. Looking forward to talking to Matthew Trimble, which I don't know what happened to me. I had a brain fart. So all this time I thought it was Trimble. Trimble. Put everything in my press. Trimble. And then he pinged me today saying that Marc Bauer is going to come out and hang out with us and talk about remote. And I noticed that it's not Trimble, it's Tribble. What an asshole, right? So I had to go back there and fix everything so he doesn't like come in there and go like, dude, you know that's not my last name, right? Matthew, I did the best I could in the short amount of time that I had, so please forgive me. Please forgive me. So Darlene will be here on the 17th. On the 17th of July. Let's see. We're still filling up holes, by the way. We still got holes here. On the 20th, the Midnight Society returns with me, the Nat. That's if he's not sleeping. Where's my thumbnail? The Nat is sleeping. I'm telling you. But we're gonna wake his ass up because we need him really bad on the 20th because we're going into A24 territory. Me, the Nat, the Horror Miser Monty G. It's gonna be good to have him back, and the Wonder Twins, Mika and Kira. We're gonna be watching we're gonna be discussing the Black Coat's Daughter. Now, Black Coat's Daughter, it came out on A24. This is one of those. This is like one of the last films that they released before they popped as far as a studio goes, which that really happened with The Witch. The Witch is what really broke A24 into the public's eye. They had done a lot of smaller releases, very much the same level as ISC in terms of return. Means they released a lot of movies, but they weren't getting a bunch of box office back. And this is one of the last ones that they did before The Witch, before we put A24 on the map. The Black Coat's Daughter features a really great cast in Shira Kipka, Emma Roberts, Lauren Holly, and James Remar. Came out in 2015, and it also is a film debut of director Osgood Perkins. So this is the first movie that he directed, and you can see that he is definitely up to his elbows in horror movies. Now, I have not seen this movie. I have not seen it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to do another A24 night. We have not done that in a long, long time. Hey Jim, how are you? Oh yeah, the replay will be definitely one to take a listen to. We're going to be talking with some Iowa filmmakers. They make some great indie films. They really do. I mean, you're the type of film a cinephile that likes all sorts of interesting movies. Yeah, this will be the interview for you. But thank you for stopping by and showing some support. I appreciate it more than you know. So we are doing Black Coat's Daughter on the 20th. That will be a lot of fun. Still working on the rest of the month as far as guests go for 8 questions with. On the 27th, I can't announce this, I'm going to. We do have a guest on the 27th. We do have some guests on here. So I had on Tim and Tom Gross, who run Gross Fest, which is a horror convention uh, based out of Pittsburgh. And we've had them on the show twice now, and they're just super cool dudes. They do everything right as far as their convention goes. They keep prices really low. They keep the celebrity guests extremely accessible. They bring in some tremendous indie favorites. Um, and as a matter of fact, we should take this moment here to say congratulations to one of the guests on the that's going to be on Gross Fest, and it has been on the show as well. And that is congratulations to John and Morgan Milan. They had their second child this week, Remy, and congratulations. And that's awesome news. Morgan's going to be a great mom. She already has one little one, but she has the second one. She's going to be a great mom. His kids are going to be great, and probably end up being actors too. Um, and I'm so happy for them both. And they're great people, and we wish nothing but success and back in front of the camera soon, soon. And Morgan will be there at Gross Fest on August 1st and 2nd. So the boys told me that their guest of honor this year was none other than Marc Polonia. Now, we've had a lot of fun with Marc Polonia over the years. Stephen had him on House of Horrors. After 2 years of chasing him, I got to give Stephen credit for that. He chased him and got him as a guest. He actually coined the term Polonia Pals, which is the acting troupe of the actors that work at Marc's movies. I got I got on the action too. Me and the Bat, aka Al Licard. We helped Stephen work his way up to that interview a couple of years ago by hosting Marc Polonia Film Week. Uh, hi, Michelle. How are you? Okay, I'll speak a little louder. So a couple of years ago, working up our way to Marc's appearance on Stephen's show, we decided to do Marc Polonia Week, and so we watched and reviewed 5 films of his library. Marc has done 100 movies. Marc has made 100 movies. So a couple of years ago, so we each did a Polonia. We each reviewed a Polonia movie, and Stephen got his interview, and later on ended up starring in a couple of Marc's movies. So I thought, with Gross Fest coming up this August, what could I do to raise some attention to this? Because I want to chip in. I want to chip in a small way. So I thought, well, what better way to do than to bring back Marc Polonia Week? So I haven't done it in a couple of years. So I decided to do that. So starting on July 27th, which is a Sunday, for the next 5 days in a row, I am releasing a Marc Polonia film and my review on it. That will take us all the way up to the 1st of August, and that will be the first day of Gross Fest. All right, the doorbell has rang, so I got to go ahead and get this show started with our good friends, our new friends, our new best big toe, Matthew Trimble, and I believe Marc Bauer will be with him. If not, we'll just keep going until he does.
Hello.
Greetings.
How's it going?
Good. So I was explaining to people that like I've done this almost 600 times, right? Uh, I think that is going to be, yep. Marc came in right behind you.
Hello.
Hello. So I was just getting ready to tell Matthew that I've done this show about 600 times, and things, it's pretty much this well-oiled machine, except when the host of the show totally screws up the last name and doesn't really figure that out until the day of the show. So if you getting people coming up to you, Matthew, and they're going like, "Hey, I thought you said your name was Trimble," that would be me and my fault. So please forgive me. I did fix it.
No
Going like,
worries.
I'm going.
That's a pretty common mistake. It's Trimble is a far more common name, so totally understand. No worries.
So we did fix it, and definitely want to give credit when credit's due. First of all, even though I don't do reviews of movies before I do interviews, I always do it afterwards. But I just want to say right now that, yeah, Remote kicked ass. That's a good movie.
Oh, well, thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you.
It's a really good movie. It's polished. I liked it a lot. I mean, I loved, it's a great story. I loved everything about it. I loved the bumps and bruises about it. I thought, this is exciting. It's always exciting to see a director do his first feature. When he or she gets into it, it's like short films are one thing, but when you get to actually do a full length feature film, it's a little bit more exciting. But I do love short. Anybody who's watched this show knows that I'm a huge fan of short films. But watching a movie like Remote and knowing this is your first time and seeing how well it's coming out, it's pretty exciting. We're excited for you as fans.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I would say that all of the credit with that needs to go down to the wonderful cast and crew that we had around us, and the fact that Marc and I worked pretty hard on the script to get it right. I think that's one of the key ingredients to getting anything to work is get it right in the script first. So thank you very much. But I will deflect the praise towards other elements.
I guess you guys work together. You have Broken Slate. So tell us a little bit before we get into before we get to know you guys a little bit more. Tell us how Broken Slate got started in Iowa, of all places.
Yeah. Well, I guess Marc, do you want to start, or I can get into it?
Oh, well, Matt and I worked together at Channel 2 in Cedar Rapids, and we knew each other just as coworkers at first. And then we started talking and realized, like, this is the other film guy. Like, everyone else that works here is journalists, reporters, producers. But we went to film school. We didn't go to J school. And so we kind of stuck out a little bit. I just talking with Matt is like, okay, well, maybe we could try making something together. And so we made our first short film, Dead Air. We shot it in November of 2017 and got it out to festivals in 2018. And I think we had it was definitely a learning experience, but we really enjoy working with each other. And it was like, okay, let's continue. Like, let's have an actual name and come up with more projects in the future.
Yeah. To add on to that, that first film, Dead Air, I think it was really enlightening in terms of like how much the Iowa film community is like willing to work with you. Because we were asking for like, hey, we need you for every weekend for like the next month and a half. I don't remember how long it was. Mm-hmm. But we're a bunch of kids. We can't really pay people. But people showed up day in, day out. They kept showing up the next week and the next week. And we slowly but surely kind of got through filming that. So it was really cool to work with people and collaborate on trying to, take this idea that's just on paper and get it on video. And then slowly but surely we kept making more short films together, Marc and I. But the name Broken Slate, the fun story of that is I had just like some cheap $10 slate. But was it Dead Air or was it like...
It was Dead Air.
Okay. Yeah. But Marc inadvertently broke it like while we were shooting, and so it just
was that nerves, Marc?
I think I just clapped it too hard because what happened was it didn't break in half. Just the slate part where you write everything just fell down, and so
I think it was
just broken.
It was more of just how cheap of a piece of equipment that he was given. But right from there, like it just seemed like a nice origin story, and the name seemed to fit both of our personalities, and so yeah, that's how that name got chosen.
Now, did you guys meet in film school, or were you friends beforehand?
Nope, we met at Channel 2. How many months did you start ahead of me, Mark? Were you there a year?
I was there. I started in April of 2016, and I think you started in January of 2017.
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
I've been
it
there a while.
was a case of Mark is, kind of showing me the ropes at the new place. But yeah, we just kind of discovered just from talking, oh, this guy likes movies also. And yeah, you just form that connection that way.
That's interesting. You're not the first ones to have started in Iowa based out of a news or television station. Our good friend Michael James Menards worked at a station as well. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's one of those jobs like once you get out of college, you can go right into like a video production workspace. And so in that regards, it makes sense that it's like a likely place for us movie people to go.
Yeah.
Now, what was the college that you attended to for film school? You said, was that Davenport?
For me, I went to Columbia College in Chicago.
Okay.
And then I went to the University of Iowa in their cinema program.
How was that?
It was okay. I would say it should have been more hands-on. Let's get the camera in your hands, go out and make mistakes and figure out how this actually works. There was a lot of classroom stuff, and I think that's the only way to learn is to go out and do it. And so I hope it's better now, but at the time it was still very, homework and classroom.
Now that's got to be now being based in Iowa as you were. Unlike some of the more major media places like Chicago or Atlanta or LA, Iowa has that. Iowa's not the first place that people think about when it comes down to making films or being trained to make films. Were there a lot of people? Did you notice? Was there a lot of your peers, or did you know anybody before you went to Iowa that was enthused about doing it, or did you feel like like you were like sort of like a pioneer in that respect?
I mean, I didn't know anybody else really that went to Iowa, and definitely not for the film program, really. But I think what we've seen is that like people are creative everywhere, and I mean, it's just a matter of finding. And so that's the novelty and the great thing about shooting in Iowa. You go to a business and say, "Can we shoot a movie in here?" And they get so excited and are throwing the keys at you before you even tell them the rest of it. And so we've never really run into an issue with that, and I'm always really grateful for that. And I know that's not the case everywhere. There's Matt, you shot in Chicago and you had to have a permit for just about everything, didn't you?
Yeah. And I think part of that just comes down to Chicago's used to like actual productions filming there. And so they have a lot more, red tape and rules in place. But yeah, with our experience at every level.
Wolf owns the town right now, right?
Sorry, say that again.
I think Dick Wolf owns the town right now, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, they got like 800 different Chicago this, Chicago that shows.
Oh my gosh, it's interesting hearing how those shows work together, and because you think that, man, it sounds like it would be just like a pouring in a blender. How do you keep everything straight?
Right.
But they do it, and you're right. I mean, the difference between Chicago and and I guess Chicago is more like LA than one would suspect as far as terms of permits. Now, what was the first project that you each worked on separately and then met? Then met. I mean, you guys met at the station. So how did the conversation come up? Because this, saying I'm a filmmaker, it's not exactly the first thing people say. It's like it's just something that you do, but it's like it's not something that you say. You say that I'm into this, I'm into cars, I'm into this or that.
Mhm.
But I guess it's got to be a little bit strange to sit there and hear someone sit there and say, I'm a filmmaker, and so are you. I mean, it must have been really like, was it excitement? Was it exciting to actually meet someone who's
Yeah.
in Iowa? That's,
Anytime you discover people that like you get, that you're like, oh, this person's like me, I get them. That's the best. I think a natural part of the human journey is like you feel alienated throughout different phases of life, but when you find somebody who's like, oh, they see kind of the world similar to the way that I see it, I think that's really cool and inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like your first night at the station, we were chatting about like where we each went to school, and you said you went to Columbia specifically for directing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, so you're also a film guy, and I think that's kind of got the conversation going. And I think we had each shown each other a short script that we had worked on, and kind of gave each other feedback and praise, and said, well, okay, what if we actually tried writing something together based on our humor? Because we also seem to have the same sense of humor.
I was going to say the similar comedic things. And yeah, I think the first thing that we were going to try to work together was like a sketch idea, kind of like a Mr. Show. And then somehow that just evolved into us focusing on one character, and then that evolved to Dead Air, more or less.
Yeah.
So
we kept coming back to this idea of a DJ that really does not like where he's working, not because the music's bad, but because it's becoming more corporate. And so that kind of became the basis.
That's a good subject.
Yeah.
So Dead Air is your first film. So you guys get together. You guys realize you both, love film. It's exciting. So what was it like for for your first collaboration? Now, did you guys write together for Dead Air, or was it something that you guys would meet at a coffee shop or bookstore or whatnot and work out on your work out there? What was it like working with somebody? Because I'm sure each have written your own scripts separately. What was it like for the first time to collaborate with a peer?
So there's like a nearby restaurant that we would kind of hang out in and have writing sessions at, I remember. But I don't remember if it's just been so long, my memory's not that great. But I think we wrote separately, and then we met at the table and then and worked on stuff together. And then did we just take our separate scenes, or did we then?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of figuring out the story together, and then it'd be like, okay, well, I'll take that scene, you take that scene, and then we'll meet up next week. How gracious to just give one scene assignment to ourselves. We didn't. But yeah, that's pretty much how that went.
That's gotta be exciting. So you each have something to work on for the next week. So what kind of pressure was there? I mean, did you just sit there and be like, okay, so wow, and he wrote something really exciting, so what do I have to do to match that? Is it when you write together on a script like that, is there that pressure, whether it's to be subliminally or not, that you see your partners, like, okay, wow, he's writing a kick-ass action scene, how do I top that? How is it the temptation to try to do that, or do you sit there and look at where he's going with the story, and even if it's not the most exciting thing that you could write, you do write some continuity into the story? Like after the big shootout, you're the one gonna be writing about the cop talking to his captain about it, or do you feel like you really want to keep the high energy going and you write the scene to keep it that high? How do you work with each other about that?
I think part of it is we had kind of like a rough outline of like, this is what the next scene more or less is, and that would kind of help guide us for what we should be writing. But I don't think we ever like hesitated or refused to like, oh, if I'm feeling we should take a left turn instead. I think from what I can remember, we would. But yeah, it's really those sessions that you kind of hear like, oh, this is what's connecting, this is what isn't, and then you can kind of just keep branching out from there until it becomes more formed.
I think there definitely is pressure in having something written. I think it's like, okay, I'm going to show up, and if I have nothing, then I'm going to feel really bad and maybe dumb. So I have to get something on the page, because then we can talk about why it's not working at the very least. And so I think we always had that. And then when we wrote our feature as well, is like, okay, let's at least bring it to the table and talk about it together. And I think in terms of excitement, I think we're aware that like you need those in between scenes as well. I mean, towards the end of the story, you really want foot on the gas, but you need to build. And I think we're very aware of that, of like, we need to establish the atmosphere and tone and who these characters are before we can really get into the nitty gritty, exciting stuff.
Now, you got your script done for Dead Air. Now the next thing is like, where do we shoot it? Who do we, do we need how big of a crew do we need? And we need a cast, and we're going to need an editor. And so how did you assemble your team for the actual shoot itself?
Yeah, so I believe the first step was trying to find a potential crew to help us film. Maybe we started cast first, but I want to say it was crew first. But I know that Marc reached out to SVP in Iowa City.
That's like the student video productions. It's like the student film club at Iowa. Because it was like, we don't know. We hadn't even joined the Iowa Film Facebook group yet. And so, because we didn't know what was out there.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, I know that Iowa has this group of students that are probably itching to work on something. And so that was kind of the route we took, was like, we know we can't pay anybody, and this is our first, and this might be a lot of people's first. And so let's find people that are eager to do it.
Yep. And then for the cast, we rented out like the local public library, just like a room space, and then we just held auditions. I mean, we got a pretty decent amount of people for the amount of people that are in that movie.
I bet you were surprised by how many you got, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, there's always that like I don't know. There's always that blind belief that like this will work out, that I think you kind of have to some degree.
Yeah.
But then there's also that like practical, like, why would anybody show up for this?
Yeah.
I'm not anybody. We can't. I mean, like, we're not really offering anything.
Right.
But it's that like you're finding people that are also eager to work, as Marc said.
But it's got to be at the same time you're sitting there going like, man, who are we gonna find? It's Iowa, it's foreign. How many actors are there, and will they be? Will they be? I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of people wanting to come in. Some are gonna be there for looky-loos. How many are there going to be truly? And then all of a sudden you realize that, holy crow, there's a lot of good people in here. There's a lot of talent here. Who knew?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're going like, because a lot of times you think, a lot of times you would think that you would hear a filmmaker or even an actor that's, like discovering their craft in a small state like that. And the first thing they say is they want to go somewhere bigger, like Chicago or Atlanta or Houston or LA or something like that. But all of a sudden you realize that, hey, there's some people here that want to do this. And you know what? There's not. I mean, it's a bigger pool than what we expected, but in the scheme of things, it's really not. I could actually act here, or I could actually direct here, because I don't have to compete with go to LA and every person you meet there is an actor. Good luck with that. But here in Iowa, now you can sit there and go like, I don't want to go anywhere. I think we have a chance to do something great here. That's got to be. It must have been. I would have liked to have seen your first casting day. I think that probably. Now, were you guys both there for it?
Yes.
Yeah. I was there. I had to go to work on day one, the first audition day, but I was there for like the first half.
Yep. Yeah. It was. I think it was a few of us, and we got somebody to like, take people's names and like in the waiting room. So
yeah, your brother. We got Daniel to check people in. I think it was very official for what it was. Like we wore we literally wore shirts and ties, we had people fill out paperwork in like a lobby area.
I don't even think we went to that level for remote. Like
no,
we didn't even go to that level.
Well, yeah, but this is your first time.
Yeah, that's right.
The thing is you're learning as you go. I mean, after Dead Air, I'm sure the next project got a little bit easier. I mean, and your problem solving and those skills, that you took with you from Dead Air, now you apply them to the next project, and the next project you worked your way up to remote. I mean, people say, we talk about this is your first feature film, that you directed, Matthew, but it's not your first rodeo. So it's not like you walk in the remote and go like, wow, this is my first one. What do I do? No, you have a tool chest. You know what to expect, how to expect it, what you need. And Marc's right there behind you as a producer, co-screenwriter, making sure you have all the resources you need. You guys were a team, polished by the time you got to remote, but not so much with Dead Air because you're just learning.
Yeah. And it's always terrifying because like, you never know how is everybody going to work together. Obviously problems will arise and like, how do you overcome that? But, and I'm sure there were probably times I drove Marc crazy, but he stuck it out, and here we are today, still able to talk with one another.
Right. You know what? I have that is one special thing that I have noticed. With again, I'm saying this because I just absolutely I have so much respect for the group of talent in Iowa. That's one thing I've heard over and over from different filmmakers is just how well everybody gets along. There's no drama. I mean, there's no prima donnas or anything else like that. They all want to make sure they do the best job possible. That's a godsend too.
Yeah, and I think that kind of adds on to the sort of the Iowa versus maybe other places is that I think everybody here, nobody has some sort of illusion that they're better than anybody else. We're all just trying to make stuff at the end of the day. So when you want to be there, it definitely helps make things go a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how long did it take you to actually shoot Dead Air? And who did it? Did you guys edit it yourself, or did you have to find the editor? Tell us about finding someone who scored it. With that, because getting actors through auditions one thing, but trying to find a composer or an editor, how did you find those? How did you find those folks to help you with your film?
Yeah, so we both edited Dead Air. I think we both had a little bit of experience doing it on our own in college and in news as well. And so the editing process was something like that's something we can handle. And then in terms of music, the story itself, since it's about kind of this video DJ, we basically found public domain music that was in that style, and we just kind of used that to score it, as opposed to finding somebody to create and compose music for us. And it fit with our budget. Again, it was a no budget short film, so we tried to cut as many financial quarters as we could.
You learned early.
Yeah.
So now the film is finished. Your friends are, you put a lot of time into it, and it's all polished, ready to go. Where did you go with it? Were you able to show it to the cast and crew? Did you take it? Did you know anything at the time about festivals and how to submit it, or where did you show Dead Air at?
I know we submitted it to a few festivals, but was there a phase before that, Mark? I can't remember.
We didn't do a cast and crew showing. We thought about it, but I think we were just so caught up in, because I think the Cedar Rapids Film Festival was very fast approaching.
Yeah, we were trying to reach that deadline. That's right. Yep.
I think we submitted a draft of it. It was like, this isn't our final thing, but
Yeah.
they'll take it and they'll allow us to continue to work on it before the actual screening. And so that's what we did was, okay, that's our deadline. That's where everyone can come out and see it.
Mhm.
And so that was the first time we had seen it up on a big screen ourselves, because I don't think we had rented a space before then. I guess in your parents' basement we watched it.
Yeah, that's right.
But
They have a larger screen, so it's like, well, this will give us kind of an idea of what it'll be like.
We got a couple comments here, and I wanted to definitely say hi to our chat. Our good friends Mira and Mika and Kira here, and they say you would think that it would be essential for everyone to get along together while creating a film, especially since it's such an immersive experience. Yeah. It's funny. It's really weird. It's like I've talked to so many directors and and actors and producers and whatnot. For the longest time, I didn't hear anybody ever talk about like bumps and bruises, incidents or what have you. Now I've heard a lot of people talk about an indie film. Sometimes the talent doesn't show up, or some of the crew doesn't show up. Yeah, but as far as like getting along, I've never really heard that many times about people getting, like, wow, that person's got 10 lines and I only got 7. I'm upset. People laugh at my example, but that happens. I mean, there have been some actors that have literally taken the script and looked at it and make sure that they didn't have any less lines than the other person.
right. I think for us, a big part of it is also kind of really looking at the auditions and getting like, okay, what's the vibe of this person? Like, are they like super serious and like standoffish? Because like we like to have fun on our sets. We like to not feel like work. And it's not that we wouldn't necessarily hire that person. It's just like something we are keeping track of as we're doing the audition is like, can we gel with this person? Can they gel with everyone else? Because if that's not going to work, then the whole thing is in jeopardy potentially.
Yeah.
That's a great. Go ahead. I'll let you go ahead, Mark.
No. I was just gonna say he hit the nail on the head. Like that's part of I think the audition is like, it's are they right for the character? Obviously, like we got to start there. But can I work with them as a director? Can they work with others? You don't really get 100% certainty one way or the other, but you try to feel it out. And we've been very fortunate where like everybody that we've had the pleasure of working with has played ball, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Jen mentions here she just got her certification to become a film editor.
Oh, congrats!
Yes, that's awesome. Now you get to get out there and find that first job. I've heard both types of cases of actors not getting along as well as getting along, and how it can still create great chemistry and energy on set. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there have been stories where they've had talent on, like couldn't stand each other off camera, but when you put them in front of the camera, they're magic. But as soon as you say cut, they're both separate. I don't know how that works, because to me it's like if you're not at least talking to each other, if you're storming away saying I'm not going to, unless it's my scene with her or him, I'm not coming out. To me, it's like you might as well not come out at all. I don't care if you have great chemistry on screen. You got to still be able to communicate with the person you're with. And I just think
Yeah.
that, yeah. But that's a good segue because now I do, I wanted to talk about Dead Air for a little bit to establish how you guys got going. But I do want to spend some time, and we are going to spend some time starting right now with Remote. Because, like I said before, Remote is definitely one of the top movies I've seen this year. I really liked it.
Oh, well, thank you.
So by the time you guys decided to tell us about talk to us a little bit about how you decided to do your first feature. When did you feel confident enough that you could do something like this? Because you had done a handful of short films and done them very well. But what got you thinking that it was the time for the next step?
Well, Mark, when did you reach out to me? Was it 2019, 2020?
It was 2020. It was middle of the pandemic quarantine. Right. And I think it was, I had either just watched Green Room or something, some horror movie where I was like, oh, wow. Like, and I had seen that.
I know both of us were pretty obsessed with that movie at that time. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like, I think we could do something like that. Like, or not even necessarily we could. It was like, wouldn't it be great if we tried to do that? I think was kind of the attitude. And so I reached out to Matt and said, hey, I've got this idea. We should try and make our first feature film because, we've been there, done that. We've done the 48-hour challenges. We've done other scripted short films. What's stopping us? Like, we don't really have much else going on. Like,
yeah. I think it's that, like, are you always trying to get better? That's all we want to do is just try to make the next project better than the last. And yeah, that seemed to be a time where maybe we can branch out further. Maybe we can try to be even more ambitious with this next project. And so even though I don't think Patrick's here anymore, we're still rolling. So I'll keep going.
Yeah.
So this was one where Marc reached out and said, hey, let's do a feature. And I was an immediate yes, I'm in. And then I think from there, it was just figuring out, like, okay, what is the right story for us to tell? What's something that is within the means of our, ultra low micro budget? What's something that, like, we could have access to filming?
Mm-hmm.
And then tonally, like, what's the right type of project and fit for us? And so those were just kind of questions we had at the forefront of our minds while we were just in the early phase of, like, what's the story? What are we talking about? Right. Who are the characters? And so, yeah,
I remember, like, we had 2 or 3 meetings before we even sat down to write anything, where it's like, how would we even approach this? Or, like, because I think I was aware of, like, this is at least going to take 3 years of our life. And so when you have to show up every day excited to work on something like that. And so it was like, okay, what interests me is this, and then kind of a list of the genres or the ideas I would like to play with. And then Matt kind of did the same thing. And we decided, we know so much about the world of news that was made the most sense of pursuing that.
Now, you mentioned it would take you 3 years to make the film. Why so long?
Well, I figured, at least 6 months, if not more, to write it. And then probably a good 6 months to get your cast and crew together, locations and everything. And then the actual shoot, that's more of just weeks and days. But then editing and getting it out into the world with marketing and all that, I figured that's was a pretty safe bet.
And we knew going into it that, like, outside of the submitting to film festivals, we hadn't done anything with any of our short films beyond that. And so we knew that this was going to be kind of like a learning curve, and we should kind of expect the worst, and hope for the best, but take things slow and just see if we can kind of navigate this new territory of distribution. So
Yeah,
and it's funny because you expect, oh, it'll probably take us 3 years. Here we are, it's year 5, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So a remote has been it was a 5 year. It took 5 years to get to the screen. That's I've heard of films like that. That's not it's not unusual.
Right.
But you wanted to do it right.
Mhm.
So you wrote you're right. You know the news. So but in a sense, do you think that the script would have did the script come together faster because you do have a news background?
I mean, I remember there was a period where we were trying to write something and then like it didn't work and we like basically restarted.
Mhm.
But I think once we figured out how to restart, I want to say
Yeah.
that it went pretty quickly after that.
Right, because I think it was about 4 months, maybe 5, into writing the initial draft where we were at page like 40, and it was like, oh my God, that's the end of our feature film is only 40 pages long. I don't think so.
Yeah.
And so I had Matt come over and I said, hey, this is hard to say, but I think we have to start over. And it didn't take too much convincing. I think you kind of felt similar where it's like, yeah, there should be more here, I think was the feeling.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I like with working with Marc is we're both very able to, hey, even if it's potentially going to be uncomfortable, like let's have the conversation. Far better to do that, get it out of the way before before we're 2 years into something that somebody had extreme reservations about and we shouldn't have ever pulled the trigger on. I think we just kind of looked at the script that we had and we said, there's not enough here. There's not enough to branch out if we were to stick with this kind of structure. And so it was just, okay, let's go back to square one. And
do you think you're sort of still in the short film sort of frame of mind, like because you've done 5 or 6 short films and you're going like, okay, this is every short film's about 40 pages, or whatnot. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now we got to do something like twice as long. It's like,
Right.
Yeah. So like we got to break the mode, like, okay, we're growing out of what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Now I have a question for Jen. Jen has a question for you guys. Says she has a question for the gentleman. Do producers, directors, writers, editors need agents or representation? How pivotal is it to have that kind of representation, and how early is too early to get one?
So yeah, you do not need an agent early on. Neither of us have agents especially for our first film. It's something that I think like once you establish yourself maybe a bit more and you have an agent who's really fighting for you, from what I've heard from other people who have had agents, it sounds like you really want an agent who believes in you and like will fight for you. If you just have one to have one, it doesn't do any good. And so, yeah, it's certainly not required. As long as you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can do anything.
Right. And I think it might depend on what area specifically, because I know like for actors, like working in local short films, you definitely don't need an agent. But like if you want to be in a commercial, for instance, I bet you would need some sort of representation,
or an agency of some kind,
unless it's like local TV. Again, it just kind of depends on what market you're looking to get into and what role you're looking to play. Because like where we're at right now, like we work with each other. We know other filmmakers and actors in the area. We just we pull from that group, but also, put it out to the whole community because we like learning new people and figuring out, oh man, it'd be great if they were a part of that other project we did, but we got them now. So we know.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing with remote was outside of me, Marc, and then some of the like supporting cast we knew from other projects we worked on. Everybody else was new to us. We hadn't worked with before. So a new crew, a lot of the, main casts were people that we hadn't worked with before, but yeah, you just take a step forward at a time, and yeah, you learn how to work with them, and yeah, just go from there.
Now, my question is, okay, now I'm sure you were still working at the news station when you were writing and getting ready to make remote. Did you ask any of the reporters or newsroom managers or anything else? Did you tell them that you were making a newscast film and did you ask them for any questions or advice about it?
No, we didn't really do much of that. We knew previous reporters that we kind of based the character of Jesse Phoenix on, that like kind of hungry for a bigger story. And I would say loosely based. I don't think anyone is like, oh, that's
No,
definitely
yeah.
someone we knew. But yeah, we just kind of, I was a photographer at the station, so I would go out in the field with reporters. And so that's where a lot of that knowledge came from, of like how to actually use the live truck and thinking about what the reporter photographer relationship is like, or what it can be like on the worst day, which is kind of what happens in the movie, where there's a lot of resentment.
Yeah, that was I caught that. I actually know quite a few journalists, television journalists, and that was really interesting to see the dynamic between Jesse and and his photographer, you know, Nikki. And I'm just sitting there watching that, and I'm going like, man, because she seemed really from the get go. We can see that these two have been together for a while, and she can see him chomping at the bit. That old saying. I'm trying to get to network. You're trying to get rid of the small town. You're trying to get to network. Or the desk. Or and you can see her is just totally like turned off by it, because it's like, do you care about the people you're talking to, or are you just using them as a launching pad? Uh, I personally feel I think she totally misjudged Jesse on this one. I think she was. I think the character Nikki was really sort of like. I think she was more mad at herself than she was at Jesse. I think it caught her way by surprise to see how vested he got into the story, and
Yeah,
for all the right reasons.
yeah. What I'll say is one of the things that I think interests both of us, and what we try to do with these characters is show here are two people with two different perspectives. One is like, we go 100 all the time because yeah, maybe this is my break, or because I'm an idealist, a full believer. And then you have another person who's like, there's no reason to do that. The night, just clock in, clock out is okay. There's nothing wrong. And I don't feel one way is correct more than the other necessarily. It's just a matter of, here's two people with those opposing views, and try to get them to see the other person's side, and respond to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought the cynicism, for Nikki, I thought that really came really shining, really shiny, and I really like the idea of it, because it's like, here's someone who probably once was in Jesse's shoes, and the script really it strengthens that she once was in his shoes, wanting to go up, wanting that bigger job, or the more pay, the more recognition, but it hadn't really happened for her. And though she's still young, but I think she feels like her time has gone by, and she sort of resents Jesse in the fact that he's just a young go-getter, and he's making ways that maybe she didn't make, and she's a little resentful, and she's just almost like typecasting him, like, okay, everything that we're gonna do is gonna be about him looking for the angle. And I think when like I said, I think when all of a sudden she realizes that he's actually caring about this person who nobody else does. Who cares? But here he is, and you're right. He's probably idealist, and I think it surprises him too. I think it surprises, like he's like, especially after Nikki calls him out for, for him trying to make her look like a prop, for his little,
Mhm.
like, I don't use me that way. Don't put me, I'm not that, you can't use me to launch you. I don't respect that. Um, though we feel that he never really did that. At least I didn't. I just felt like he was trying to include her as being part of a team.
Yeah, I
And
think it comes down to perspective. I think that's it. It's she sees him as he's using me for a prop for this thing, whereas for him it's I'm being inclusive. We're a team, and yeah, I think that's where the butting of heads comes is
Mhm.
an inability to see things through the other person's eyes.
now,
Right.
now the real question is, so tell us how much of real life from your real life experience is in the script without naming names, obviously. But how do we know Jesse? Do we know Nikki? I mean, or should I say, do you know Nikki and Jess?
I would say there's definitely a lot. There's characteristics that we may have seen in
Mhm.
former coworkers of ours that we included in there, but neither character is inherently one person or another.
Right.
But I would say that, like, I mean, even the story with rural Iowa and how the news team is perceived by them, um, that yeah, that's all based off of kind of what we saw
Oh
when we
yeah.
were working there.
Yeah.
Now, and did any of your peers at the stations, when they found out that you were making a movie, because by this time you've already done your short film, so I'm sure your reputations were already known at the station as not only did you work at the station, but you're also filmmakers in your own right. Um, did people start poking around and asking you how the script was, or do you have any idea what the story's going to be about? Did the natural curiosity of the people at the station, did they come ask you what was going on?
I think we had quite a few of the production assistants wanted to be a part of it because they were still uh, like college kids or recent graduates, and so they were like, "Oh, I want to be on crew," and we had basically a pre-assembled crew, so unfortunately we didn't have positions for them. But whenever there was a need for extras, we kind of asked the people that we knew because we knew like, okay, you'll show up and you'll be good at this. So yeah, I think there was always just kind of the natural curiosity of making conversation with people, and I don't think there was anybody that was like, definitely don't put me in it, which was also helpful.
uh
No, and I think part of it is also our attitude is more of like we know that this is something we care about and interests us, but we're not going to force you to be a part of it if
Right.
you don't care.
right.
So we more or less just like if you come to us, yeah, you can be a part of it, but otherwise we weren't like forcing our project on other people or like forcing them to be included in any way.
Now, I guess one of the questions I'm going to ask too is, did any of the talent at the station, did they express interest in playing like a version of themselves? Did you think about, because as you know, journalists have appeared in so many television movies and shows or
Mhm.
whatnot. Did any of them come up to you and ask to see if they could be part of
No,
the
I
movie?
I think by the time we were like really starting to look into casting, we were already getting like submissions and videos from actors, and so there was enough talent there that I was like, oh, let's not make the pile any bigger. There's already
Mhm.
so many people to pick and choose from.
Right. And there was also kind of a weird thing of like, uh, if somebody appears in your short film, it has to be like, I don't
Oh
remember.
yeah,
Hepker tried to tell us something about that. He's a producer we worked with at a
they,
station.
they try to. It's like the station owns their like image or whatever because they're under contract. It's
Right.
sounds like complete nonsense to me, but
You, you, you
but
find go ahead.
no. So yeah, that I mean that was something that like we never really opened with. And then the other thing I think too is that's important to remember is just like if you're a complete, I would say casual, like oh I like seeing movies, maybe I want to like go be part of one for a day. The shoots are long, the hours are long. It can be pretty boring. And so somebody who's more of an actor who has that like built-in like interest, much better candidate than somebody who's going to be like, I've been here for 3 hours. What do you mean we're not done yet? So yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about our cast, because this cast was really strong. Yeah, and you have some actors with some pedigree behind them. Frank Boyd. You also had I love the name. That was one of the things that got me hooked here was with the actors who played Nikki Andromeda. I was like, that's a badass name. And so where do we find Andromeda, and where do we find Matthew? I believe his name.
Michael Ridley. Yep.
So where do we find this cast? Now they look like they're all veterans. They're not like new people looking to cut their teeth. They've had some acting experience. So were these Iowa-based actors?
So yeah, so I think everybody more or less has some sort of connection to the state of Iowa. Mm-hmm. In the case of Michael Ridley, our cinematographer Bruce Bales had worked on a short film at that time called Knee High, in which Michael starred in, and we had both seen that short and both loved it. And so when he floated the idea of like, hey, this guy might be good for the part, I was like, oh yeah, send me that guy's submission, because he was fantastic in the short film. And then so that was the connection that we had to Michael. He's an out-of-state actor, but he's done a lot of different Iowa projects. And then Andromeda, what's interesting with her is the case that character was originally a man. And
really?
And then when we're just getting down to who fits the character the best, Marc might be able to elaborate better, but
yeah,
it was a why not? Why can't it be a girl?
Yeah. She messaged us ahead of the auditions and said, "Hey, I see this posting for the photographer is male, but would you be open if I auditioned?" We said, "Sure." And that's how we went into it. We said, clean slate, every audition, treat it like it's your first person you're seeing. And she just got it. She knew she had the right level of cynicism and sarcasm that we were going for with the character. And then I think with one of the scenes that we had the people auditioning for that part auditioning for, it was kind of a more weighty scene. I don't remember which scene it was, where there was quite a bit of dialogue, and it's like, okay, they're going to have to be able to relate to the Jesse reporter character, and she was able to do that and do the very kind of pissed off looking stuff. And so it was like, okay, I think we found our person.
Now, I think the story is it's damn good, because it raises so many questions. The morality is probably the centerpiece of the film. It's a morality tale, and as far as what would you do, it's up to you. What would you do in their situation? And it starts off as you have Jesse and Karen on one side. They're going like, well, how could this happen? Or why would it happen? Why would you do that? And by the end of the movie, they're answering their own questions. Mm-hmm. And they find out that I understand why this happened, but I don't like it. I don't like what happened. I'm sitting here, I'm like I've been in the wash machine for 6 hours. They're just barely hanging on there. And but the morality tale is really what got me, because I think there's a lot of people that could relate to the parents, And and look at them and go like, I really don't blame them. I don't blame them. The Winstons. I don't blame them at all. But at the same time, it's like it's a slippery slope. Because once you do something like that, who's to say that once you see something like that, who's to say that it won't be you the next time? And and it's like, would you be in such a way as to to sit there or to judge them, saying, wow, you guys are monsters. You guys are monsters. You can't, for what you did. And then next thing you know, it's like, be careful about fighting monsters lest you turn into one. And I didn't get that from here, but you definitely know that their whole morality, their whole core, their whole inner core are shaken. And yes, I believe that someone finds them. I don't believe they bleed out there. So I won't tell you anything more than that, but I like to believe that they had time to think about what was going on. What caused you to what was the genesis of that idea? Because it's a brilliant one. It's one you don't see very often. Not in this situation. Maybe on cop shows, TV shows and stuff like that, we get that. But you're talking about a pair of journalists whose job is to report the story, not become part of it. So where did you come up with the idea of Jesse's and Nikki's story as far as where they ended up at? Because it's a deep one. It's definitely.
Yeah, I think one of the things when we were coming up with the script was figuring out, what's feasible in terms of us to film. And some of the films that we liked, and we kind of alluded to it with like Green Room, is like, here are two characters who are just stuck in a situation, and how do they get out of it? And so if we can establish who they are leading up to those events, then it just sort of like everything else kind of is informed afterwards.
In terms of like the more complex morality, I think we had seen a lot of stories coming out about opioid abuse in rural communities and it being a big problem and that people aren't really paying attention. And so I think that was something that we thought was pretty rich for not only the opening death of at the start of the movie, but this idea of, well, everyone's a victim in that situation. The person that died from an overdose and then their loved ones who are left behind. And so I think that we played that up more and more as we realized there's actually quite a bit to the Winston characters. And we wanted to put a lot of that in the movie so that it wasn't one-sided. I think neither of us are really interested in a movie where it's very obvious who the bad guy is. I think we wanted to set out and make a movie about real people in an extreme situation or who make an extreme decision, and then the drama goes from there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think the nuances make characters far more interesting than just something that's black and white. And so when you're coming up with the events that happen and everything, it's just a matter of what would it take for these people to take these actions? What would make sense? How could they justify it? And then just kind of working back with their backstory, which kind of then informs all of the events that take place. And so, that was kind of our approach, was try to make it, as Marc said, kind of more real life personalities.
Yeah, I you're sitting there and you're watching them, like I said, the one step, where they slide down the hill, and it does happen, because up to that point, you're sitting there and you're going like, man, you're sitting there going to Jesse, going like, dude, man, why are you pushing so hard? It's like, like I could understand Andromeda, because it's like, why are you pushing so hard? I mean, the guy was just, he was not a saint. I personally I couldn't understand that either. Like, but every but then again, I watched 48 Hours, and I watched those cops go after drug killers, drug murderers. They go after them like you just killed their moms. They go all out just for them, just as they would for someone that a saint. And it's like that's the reason why Jesse goes too. He's like, it doesn't really matter who he was or what he was, but what his story is. So I don't care about the other part of it. I just want to know how he got where he got. I want to know how he got where he got, but I don't want to be distracted by anything else. But then when Mr. Winston makes his fatal move, morality wise, he's like, up to almost to the point where like, you're sort of justified here, dude. If you just keep on the straight and narrow, I don't think anybody's going to say too much about anything. But once he that line blurs and he can't see it anymore, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, most of the time whenever we see a bad guy show his colors, you go boo and hiss. When you saw him show his colors, you went like, oh, damn, because you really didn't want that. You really didn't want that for the family, because you could hear their pain in their voices when they're talking about what happened to them, and so you feel for them. I think, like I said, it's a great script. It's a great story, and it's highly original, and I really like the way you told it. So let's come back. I do want to say one thing. What was the hardest part for you as far as scenes go? As far as putting together scenes, what was some scenes that gave you the most difficulty in the film? Was it operating that truck? Because that truck looked legitimate.
Oh yeah. It was one of those, ask forgiveness, not permission. And it ended up for the best. So
it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. I think the stuff with the truck actually went pretty smoothly because it was like, I think we had Andromeda be like, okay, so here's the knob for that. Here's that. And then, and a lot of that was done through close up, so they didn't have to get it perfect. But we ended up driving around quite a bit. We have a lot of B-roll of Andromeda just driving various rental trucks, and because you never know when you need it. There was one day we really needed a shot of her just turning left, and we hoped that it was somewhere in there. And it was, and I just remember being so happy.
Yep. It was like pure euphoria, because the original plan of like how we're going to edit the scene didn't need that, but because we just happened to be filming her just driving around town, we got the shot where the background looked like it's in the right space, in the right area. And so that's just one of those like just tip your hat and say, oh, thank God that it all worked out. I would say for me, the most difficult shoot, and part of this is just self-imposed stress, I guess. It's the news press conference when we're all out in front of the police station.
Right.
And I think just for me, it's because I know we have extras. Everybody's standing out in the sun. And so there's that back in my head, like, oh, we got to keep moving. We got to try to get this done as soon as possible. Whereas, and this is part of the growing experience, I think next time I would need to have this centered, like, no, we have to make sure we get enough shots of this, enough shots of this, enough shots of this. So that way I can edit it maybe to the way that I would dream. But that was really, I mean, those were some of the, like I said, most of the problems were just like minor situational things like that. We didn't really have giant hurdles we had to overcome.
Yeah.
Like Jaws. We didn't have a shark that didn't work.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything like that.
Early on, I think one of the biggest hurdles was on day 2. We had an actor drop out, and we had a different actor playing the Oren role, the farmhand. And he said, I'm not going to make it. And we said, okay, I guess we're in the middle of shooting. Like, we needed you for tomorrow. and what could have been a complete halt to the production, everyone immediately got out their phones and said, okay, here's who I know that might be good for that. And it became a team effort.
That was the moment that I knew that we'd be okay as like a cast and crew, because nobody like backed off and was like, oh, this whole thing's a mess. Everybody worked together on how to solve this problem. And so, yeah, that was one of those where, it happened, but then we brought Kevin in, and Kevin was amazing, fantastic. And he's also got like stage combat experience, so he could really help with like blocking a lot of like the fighting stuff. And so, yeah, it was ultimately like a blessing in disguise, that moment.
Now, you do have Iowa royalty in this cast. We do have to talk about the Iowa royalty, because I would be totally remiss. I'd probably be hearing about it, but you also have Rob Merritt in the film.
Yeah,
Rob is a fine actor. I loved him in You Should Have Killed Me. He played Jeeves for Michael James Bernard. Just steals the movie. I mean, he's no need to be crass, sir. I love Rob Merritt. I think he's a great talent. He's a fun too. So how did you get him? How did you get him on board the project?
So fun fact, we worked with him on Dead Air. He was one of the actors that was like, yeah, I'm willing to help out. And so he was our main actor in Dead Air, and I think we had more or less tried to use him in the majority of our shorts.
Yeah, he auditioned like a lot of people for the Jesse role, and I think we just liked what Michael was doing a little better, and we always keep Rob in mind because he is very easy to work with and always willing to do whatever.
Anybody that's worked with Rob knows he's like a one-man army of creativity. Like he can sing, he can act, he edits. He's a fantastic screenwriter. Like he does everything. So he's absolutely a great asset to have on your team.
See, Michael had that wide eyes look, for Jesse, like wide eyes look. Whereas Rob would just come in there and just know that he's going to kick everybody's ass.
Yeah.
And he knows where the bodies are buried too. It's like,
Sure.
I get that. I get that. The general who played Oren, he did a nice job as well. That was the fight scene inside the house. I had a feeling that was probably the hardest thing to do, was the fight scene. It looked like it did look like it was on the camera it looked like it was a little bit like. Have you done very many combat? I mean, was this, because this is your action film right here? Was this your first action film?
Like none of our shorts were really actiony. It's more like comedy or, I guess mostly comedy. I guess like we did like a comedic musical once, but
yeah. So this was our first foray into stage combat, and I mean that was all Kevin. He showed up. That was his first day of shooting. Was when they confront Joey's character, and that was Joey's first day on set. So it was, I think there were some nerves of like, okay, we're kind of asking everyone to not only meet each other for the first time, but like trust each other of, you're not actually going to hurt me when we do this. But I think that comes with experience. I think Kevin knew what he was doing. Elliot knew what he was doing. And I think Joey was he was just happy to be there and be a part of it. I mean, such a good sport for like literally first day on set, and people are shouting in his face and and all that.
I think he did. I think everybody did great. I thought the actors played the Winstons were very, very good. Of course, Frank was great as the sheriff. I was like really impressed, and I want to give a shout out to Frank, because he's the one that came up to me and mentioned you two and says, "Hey, you guys, you need to talk to these guys." And Frank, if you're listening, you're damn right. I needed to do that, and thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you to Frank.
Yeah.
One other thing I do want to add in terms of like, as Marc said, like a lot of these we're showing up on the first day and hoping that we can hit the ground running. I think that one of the nice things about finding people that have more experience than you have, like I kind of joke about it all the time, but at the same time, I'm not really. As the director, I want to be like the least experienced person on set. I just want to work with people that are better and know more.
Right.
And that was something that like everybody brought to the table is, yeah, it could be a setup for failure on day one. You have to be able to do X, Y, Z, but they all just like they step up to the plate and they hit it out of the park. So yeah, anybody who else is thinking about making a feature or even a short, like try not to be intimidated by those that have more experience. Reach out and work with them.
Now, you mentioned before about distributing. Now, when you first started this film till now, distributing has gone it's gone 180.
Right.
The traditional way of distributing a movie that doesn't apply very much anymore. So how did you end up getting distributing for remote?
So yeah, that was something that I think our first main goal was like, let's make sure we get the thing edited and done. Whereas what we've kind of learned is you should probably start thinking about distribution early on and before you even get that far. But yeah, for us, it was more of like, all right, now that we have the thing done with distribution, it's go to the spots that like film festivals where there will be potential distributors, try to meet with people, try to hear as many different people as you can and just talk to them and then kind of go with your gut and feel people out and see what's the right person to sign with. I don't know. I might have skimmed through that. I probably should break that down further. I don't know.
Oh, I was just going to mention, like we ultimately went with Ethos Releasing. They heard about remote from the Julian Dubuque Film Festival. I guess the company representative Noah had either been there before or knew people from there, and he said we always keep an eye out from new stuff coming out of there. So we sent him a screener and had a couple meetings with him, and he just seemed on the up and up. I think for people that are interested or curious about distributing, they should know there are a lot of hucksters out there. There are people that just want to take your money. They have never maybe even seen your movie. And so I think it's good to ask questions like, who owns rights to the movie?
Right.
Do we own it or do you own it? And for how long? And so we took kind of a crash course online of like reading every article we could about like, what are some big red flags?
Talking
and
to friends of ours who have already gone through that as well. Yeah. Reach out to them and say, hey, maybe you had a positive experience, maybe you had a negative one. Give us as much insight as you can.
Right.
And thankfully people are very willing to share their experiences, good or bad, in regards to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know Michael James Bernard. I know that he has done, I think he's done, for the first film, went through Bayview Entertainment. I do believe Western County will also go through there. I can personally vouch for Bayview. They're on the up and up. They're very ethical and they're great distributors. Peter Castro and his crew over there, they do a great job. But man, you're right though, man. I also know some shady distributors too that I wouldn't trust them with a comic strip, at all. Especially especially if you go there and ask, can you open your books, and then you don't hear from them anymore. Probably not a good person you want to do business with.
Right. Yeah. What I would say is definitely like just in the verbal discussion at parts, try to feel them out, try to get a vibe. What is this person's energy? What is their motivation to some degree? With Ethos, it seemed to be about more like building a catalog, and it fit the vibe. And like Marc said, so far our discussions with Noah have been nothing but positive. But then
a lot of times, it helps to also look at how many films do they distribute? Do they distribute 200? Okay, so you're just nothing.
You're just in the pile. Yeah.
Do they do a handful? Okay, you're probably going to be able to get them on the phone.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And then,
Yeah. I
and then
mean,
the other thing I was going to say is during the contract phase, if you can get a lawyer to look it over just to make sure there's nothing in here that could completely screw you in any sense. And you mentioned like people don't want to open their books. Do you have a clause in there that says, hey, if we want, can we audit you? As long as all that stuff's in there, then
no
you're
company, no
more
company should
willing
ever
to
say,
find
no company
success.
should ever say no. Can we
Right.
audit you? And no, anybody says no, that's just a screaming red flag, especially for an indie distributor, because it's like it's a matter of trust. It's like we're trusting you with this to do it right, and it's not we don't distrust you. We just want to make sure we have a working relationship, because hopefully next movie we make, which we're pre-production on, we're coming back with it, and we'll
Right.
come back to you. We want to work with, establish that working relationship. And speaking of this, I mean, how have you found uh, doing the press for this? This is your first feature film, so now you have to do the press. How do you like doing that? Is this something that you're used to doing? Being at the news station, that you're used to, to doing or seeing press releases, or dealing with, like being part of a let's say you go out there, and do you ever talk to people, interview people yourself for the station, or
Not
do
for
you?
me. I'm definitely a behind the scenes, want to be behind the camera. Uh, I don't like talking about my own projects in that regard. I'd rather talk about somebody else's movie. But that's part of the game is
Mhm.
try to get the word out, try to let people know. So even if you're a little bit uncomfortable or nervous or whatever, you just gotta push through it. It's same with directing. You're gonna be nervous the first few days that you're there with
Right.
the new cast and crew, but you just got to go ahead first and try to do your best, and just hope
Yeah.
that you don't make an idiot out of yourself.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it helps to just do Q&As. Like we did a Q&A at our first screening, and that was just for cast and crew. So zero stakes. Everyone loves the movie, loves us. And so we're just getting up there to kind of practice. And yeah, we were pretty rusty. I mean, I don't think it was terrible, but I think we'd look back on it and be like, oh yeah, that could have gone better. And so
Yeah,
I think
I think of our Q&As, that was probably the worst one. Yeah.
right. And so just even for family and friends, if you're showing it in your backyard, have your parents pretend to, be press people. Like, yeah, it might be kind of silly, but it's going to help you in the long run find, okay, I do have a story to talk about for that question. Or when we talk about how we came up with the story, we usually talk about like quarantine and how that was a big factor in like, no one's shooting right now, so let's write. So you kind of learn, okay, I know how to talk about this a lot more than I actually thought I did.
what's next for you, for Broken Slate? What do you guys got? What do you guys got planned? As soon as you get done doing press for a remote, what do you got anything in the pipeline?
So yeah, we're both working on our own scripts at the moment. We're having writing sessions that have been just bad the last few weeks because I've just in some sort of creative rut. I don't know what it is, but we'll get through it. It always gets written at the end of the day. But yeah, we're just working on separate projects, but then looking over each other's scripts, trying to get them ready. Usually every summer we work on a short film together, so we may do that again.
Well,
Yeah.
Matthew, you know what you have to do in order to get out of that script, that writing rut. You know the answer to it already, don't you?
Just say, hey, Marc, read this over.
Well, that's helpful, but the ace is get Rob Merritt, put Rob Merritt
That's
in
right.
there.
That's right.
That's right.
I said, what would Rob do? What would he do? Okay,
I probably will. Once I get it to a point where I'm willing to share it with more people, I'll probably send it to Rob just to say, hey, what's your thoughts? What's your advice?
Right.
I hope you guys. I wish you guys the very best with remote. I think, like I said before, it's definitely one of my favorite films of 2025. I think it's a sensational film. My review will come out tomorrow, so you can go take a peek at it. It is currently playing for free on Tubi. and highly recommend you guys go over there and watch it. It is a corker of a story, and will definitely have you asking a lot of questions and probably rewatching it a couple of times as well, because there's a lot of interesting quandaries that you guys bring to the table, and not so black and white. Journalism as we know it, especially now, it isn't all black and white, is it? It's very gray. There are it isn't just defined anymore. It's like incidents like things that the story in Remote. Unfortunately, you have a feeling it's a little bit more closer to home than we really like to think it is, and it's a terrific story and highly recommended. And I want to thank you guys for coming out and talking with us about it. Marc and Matthew, it's been a real pleasure, real honor to talk to you about your film and your process.
Same.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Here.
much for having us, and thank you everybody in the chat for watching. This means a lot to us, and so yeah, thanks again for giving us a platform and for letting us talk about it.
I do hope that I know there are some folks out there. I know like Mira and Kira Mika and Kira are out there. I hope that you will go over there and watch it and do a review. That would be awesome, because I'd like to hear your point of view about a Remote myself. I really like to see what you two come up with, because you guys are really insightful. So hopefully you'll get over there and do that. And I will definitely be the first one over your channel to check out your review. As far as to the chat, I want to say thank you again for coming out. Tomorrow we have one of our own joining us here on 8 Questions with Marcus Witherspoon, also known as I Shot Him 6 Times. You can tell he's a Halloween fan. He'll be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and him and I will be chewing all sorts of things horror. He's going to probably come over and try to talk to me about Halloween, which I am thoroughly looking forward to, where they should go next, and we'll probably be talking a little bit of ISC stuff too, and probably a little bit of Remote, probably to tell you the truth. But I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming out and watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. You two guys just stay right there for 1 second. I'm going to say goodnight to the chat, and then we're out of here. Peace.